Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We'll just get started in a second, but just before we do, just wanted to introduce the team that we've brought to the session today, and then we'll kick things off. I am Ryan Slater. I'm one of the solutions engineers here at Iru. I'm joined by Lance Crandall, our head of product for the Windows and Windows part of the environment. We also have Kelvin from GWI and Robbie Barnes from 215 Tech. And we're each going to be doing just a small part of this so that we can give you an introduction to what MCP is, what we're doing, and how you could potentially use it in your environment. But generally speaking, the agenda is going to follow this flow. So Lance is going to kick us off. We'll show you how to set things up on a live session, and then we'll show you through Kelvin and Robbie just a few real world examples on what you could do with it as you start and get started and things like that. Cool. Over to you, Lance.
Yeah, hey, I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the things that we've been shipping for MCP. This is really cool because if you kind of think about the history of where we've been, the thing that we've had in the past is enterprise APIs, and these enterprise APIs basically allowed you to interact with different products. But if you wanted to do that, you had to really understand the APIs and what they look like. And with those APIs, there's different ways those were returned to you, like data would be returned or how you had to pass data into it. You had to do things with different products. And so maybe the authentication was different between those products. So learning how to use it even with one product was challenging to allow you to do some automation, but doing it across products was even more challenging. And so at this point, basically, if you kind of think about what MCP has done, MCP has given you the ability to, companies can wrap their APIs and different tools that they create into this protocol that now allows you to interact with that through different AI assistants. So if you think about Cursor and Claude and some of these tools that exist, now you can actually do the interaction with that, which is pretty neat. So now it's all just through natural language and you're able to kind of do things a little more automated, but all through natural language. So I think that's pretty neat. So with Iru MCP, we released this, maybe it's been about a month now, and we've seen customers do some really cool things, like really excited to have Robbie here and Kelvin here to kind of talk through things. And so with that, there's some things that you can do through the APIs already. The first thing is it gives you the ability to basically get device information. You can do things with blueprints. You can get app or device inventory as well, which is really interesting. You can do things like wipe devices or lock devices, and all those things are really valuable to help you be able to take action on different things that we have. So with that, like an example that I kind of like to give is that you can do offboarding, for example, where you're able to, maybe it reads a ticket from ServiceNow, it's able to pull things in from that ticket. Maybe you want to disable that account in your IDP and then wipe the devices that are associated with that user in Iru. And then you can update and close the ticket as well. And with that, once you've done that, now you can actually even send a message to a Slack channel. And so with that, that gives you the ability to loop this all together with multiple different tools, basically just by saying what I said here in this example. And that's really powerful. I'm going to show you how to set this up. The first thing I'm going to do is just show you how to set this up in Iru. So I'm in an Iru tenant, and what I'm going to do is go to the bottom here and then click on Access. And when I go to Access, I'm going to click on API tokens. And with that, I'm able to now create a new token. Sorry, I'm moving around Zoom windows here. So I do that, I'm just going to give it the name of a token. I'm going to just call it MCP3, very creative name here. And then I can give it a description I want. But the key thing is this has already existed. The thing that's new here is now I can say enable MCP. And so when I do that, now I can say create. And if all goes well here, now it's actually telling me that my token's been created. And so I can see my API token. This is just the generic token that I can use if I wanted to literally programmatically use something. But also I have my MCP configuration here. So this has some information in it that you can paste into various tools. And I will say that some of the tools are different. So you may have to adjust this a little bit, just depending on which tool you're using to get it in the right format and right flow. So in this case, I can say that I've copied this, and then I can click next. And then at this point, I can configure which permissions I want this to have. And the nice thing about this is that now I could say, hey, I want to have a read-only token. I don't want it to actually take any action, or I can have different tokens for different groups. So in this case, maybe I would say something like, hey, I want it to allow blueprint management, and it can do everything here. If I scroll down, I could say I want custom profiles, custom scripts, whatever. But you control this, the scope of what you want that token to do and what that allows the MCP to do as well. So I've copied the MCP configuration. I've now configured some permissions with that. Once I save that, now that token is live. The token as well is like a one-time thing. So you probably saw previously that I'd click the button to say, okay, I've copied this out. Because if you go back to it and want to view that configuration again, you're not able to. So with that, I'm going to show you how you actually configure this in Claude as well, which is one of the more popular AI assistants that exist. So to do this in Claude, basically what I'm going to do is go to Claude settings, and then I'm going to go to developer. And then here I've actually already configured this just for the sake of this demo, but basically I can open this up in like text edit, for example. And if I get this to pull forward, this has my information at the top. So again, it's maybe like slightly different of how you have to change this depending on the configuration that you got and the tool that you're using, but all the information is there in that configuration that we gave. So anyway, once you have this, now you're all hooked up in Claude and you can start doing some really cool things. So one of the things that I did this morning, just prior to this, that I thought was kind of neat is that I wanted to do like a patch compliance dashboard. And so what I did is that in my tenant, I had just a limited number of devices just because I'm a test tenant, so I don't have a lot, but I wanted it to have a pie chart that showed me my patch compliance. And the way that it does that is I wanted it to actually reach out to the internet and understand what's the latest. So I'm the Windows guy, right? But this works
Just
for Apple. But back in Claude, this was my patch compliance dashboard. So again, I was trying to pull in information on, hey, figure out the latest patch from Microsoft and what that build number is. And then I want you to pull in all my Windows devices. Again, this can work for Mac as well and all your Apple devices. This was just my example. And then I wanted to have a pie chart that showed me like, show me which of my devices based on that OS version were compliant or not compliant with that policy. And so it went through and asked me a few questions like, hey, how do you want to show this information? And in this case, I said I want Windows only, but you could definitely do it for all your Apple devices. I wanted to make this like a React prototype. So that way it's like a web page that I could interact with. I wanted live data and so forth. So anyway, it went through for a little while here and kind of created this whole thing. And so in the end, what this did is that it created this interactive dashboard for me for patch compliance. And this is pretty cool, right? So I can see all my devices. Again, I don't have a lot of devices just because it's my test tenant, but you can see information about the devices, which OS it's on, which build it's on, and then like when it's checked in and whatnot. And here I can see, if it's compliant or not. I could drill into that as well and say, okay, here's my compliant device, but I want to see my non-compliant devices as well. And so you can keep enhancing this. So now that I have this, I could say it's showing me stale devices, but what does that mean? I want this to actually be something that's a little bit more interesting. And my stale devices, if they're not on the latest build, I want stale means it hasn't checked in, that I want those to be marked non-compliant too. So I could go back into Claude at this point and start iterating on this to make it like really how I want it to be. But you can kind of see the power of this is that I could actually pull this information in through Iru into this dashboard. And then even if I wanted to do something more and tied into other tools, I could have it maybe send a Slack message out or email the end user if it finds out that their device isn't compliant after a certain amount of time. And so you have a lot of control with being able to do that with these other tools and just doing it all through natural language. Anyway, so that was the example I wanted to share. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan.
Cool. No, thanks for that, lads. Yeah, I'm actually really excited to see how quickly a lot of this can be put together, right? Like things that would historically take quite a lot of engineering time or excessive thought process, right? Like building the front end for the way that you're displaying all of that reporting information would genuinely take quite a long time unless you have tools to just feed it straight into. And I think it's a really cool way of using human language to connect things together. Now, just to go back to the slide deck for a second, we've gone through the example of setting up through Claude. Of course, there are other agents, there are other tools out there. Well, we can share some documentation on how you can set things up with the AI agents as well. But just to give you some real world examples, right? So things that have been done by current customers of Iru, wanted to bring in Kellen into this part of the session because this is something he has built. And I just really want you to run through us what your thought process was, what was the thing that you were trying to solve, and then just run us through how you built it, Kellen.
Sure. And thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. This is a great example of how I'm using Iru MCP to keep myself organized, check the audits, and most importantly, check the migration from currently right now, we're using Jamf as our primary MDM, but we are moving over into Iru. And I've been taking a responsibility to do that. And I want to make sure that our devices are compliant, the migration is going smoothly, and most importantly, our FileVault is being encrypted and seeing the process on how everything is going on. Ideas I have created, and this is one example, the Slack integration. I created one Slack message that I get weekly on Monday, set it to 9:30 a.m. once I turn on my machine, which this can be fully automated, but I like to pre-approve everything before sending it out, just to make sure everything's okay. So it lets me know if the devices are offline, if they're stalled, if they're compliant as well, if I need to take action on anything on my end. Devices also have a device name, like a scheme. If they're in the New York office or in the US, they'll be named NYC, London, Singapore, and Athens. So this lets me know, has the device automatically been renamed on its own using my script? And if it hasn't, then I could go ahead and check that out. If a device hasn't been checked in, I do have the MCP permissions to set a command, check in the device to see if it could come back online on Friday at the end of the day. Lets me pre-approve everything first before taking action on its own for security purposes. FileVault, if there's a new hire, MDM profile renewal, all that jazz. I do also want to share my screen on a artifact that I created, which could be a little bit helpful on the process here. So let me do that. And this automatically updates on the artifact. So weekly, it'll give me a good idea of that. Here it goes. So weekly, when that runs, it'll update everything visually, and I could just export it, send it to my director, InfoSec as well, to see how the migration is going. And they always like a good report every week. So everything is right there. Lets me know how many devices are in London, Athens, New York, all that stuff. And it gets pulled from Cloud as well, which we're moving over to Okta. So everything is just connected with the MCP and APIs all together. So that's pretty much simple.
That's really cool. And a good example of how you can deal with those shoulder tapping questions without providing folks access to the actual tools themselves, right? If I can consolidate the data, I can present it in a nice format, then I can share that with whoever needs to see it without actually giving them any training or access or whatever that might look like, which is really cool. Just to go back to one of the first workflow you shared a second, the numbers on the left, and I guess this is really just my side of things, more the way that I'm thinking. 6 Monday morning checks go into one compliance report, and it's saving an hour a week, right? An hour a week doesn't sound like too much, but it does a couple of things. It saves it, right? Yes. But it's also reducing I guess to me, it's reducing the amount of laborious tasks that you have to do, right? So freeing up the energy for things that you actually care about, quite frankly, right? And the things that you really want to build out there. So actually, beyond that, there's some softer benefits, I think. Right? If you've got this available in Slack, that's a tool that you work in every single day. You don't have to log in. We can keep things out of platform and making sure that you have access to the information in a place that you already are on, right?
Correct.
I guess the second example here is about Jira. So just run us through that one, Kevin.
Yeah, when it comes to Jira as well, when it does the weekly check-in, it will let me know when there's a new hire that has successfully enrolled their device, but also it will let me know if they have any failed task or commands that didn't go through. And this is a great example of just a demo ticket with a random serial number and name, where it will let me know if the user has not completed their FileVault enrollment, or if they're migrating from Jamf-to-Iru, it will let me know, hey, there's a new device, but they didn't complete the rotation of the FileVault, and it will let me know and do all of that for me. And this is for visibility for the entire team. So this is in the IT team Jira space as well. And in Slack, the InfoSec team also has access to that. So both the IT team and InfoSec, they all have access and visibility to everything. And if they need to take action on it, they will. So
that's really cool. And also right at the bottom as well, the section where you're presenting a remediation strategy as well, right? Helping field engineering or support and help desk team members as an engineer to deal with those situations as well, which is really quite cool. But yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. Anything else to add? Or
nothing else, but definitely having this as a Jira ticket as well, which I wish I showed another screenshot of what other tools that I have created, and even with Jira, with the Iru MCP, creating an inventory management system in Jira where it's connected with the Iru MCP, where I can see all the users who submit a ticket, and it automatically detects, hey, this user has this iPhone, this iPad. It lets me know what's the FileVault key without me needing to sign into the Iru portal. So I wish I could show that screenshot, but that is also something that I have created.
That's cool.
That's all.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm sure if anyone's got any questions, they could probably find you on on
On
Slack or
LinkedIn
something
or
like that,
somewhere.
right? LinkedIn.
Yep.
Cool. So just moving into the next one. So again, there's an example of a report here. So I'm just going to bring Robbie into the conversation. Similar, same thing as before. Let us know what your thoughts were behind this and the goals that you managed to solve for.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So we work with several different customers all using Iru. So being able to generate these kind of one-off reports is extremely helpful for us. We often find that the best way to work with customers is be super clear on everything that's happening. If we make recommendations, we want to make sure it's grounded in data and is clear to all of the stakeholders at that business. I brought up this report though in particular because one of the, I think, superpowers of using the MCP connection with Iru is it can actually read the results of what scripts you put out there. When we're onboarding customers in whatever stage they're in into Iru, we often need to do a bunch of reporting on what's in their fleet and devices. What kind of things do we need to take care of? Often there's more than one EDR system and they don't play nicely together. That's something we want to clean up. This example that I'm showing here is where we had the question from their engineering team, what other folders besides slash applications have app files in them? So whether it's an installer or a full-on application, anything like that. So if it's in downloads, if it's in desktop, anywhere else like that, we wrote a script that just reports that information out. And then literally in one prompt, we were able to generate this report saying, this is what we're looking for. We want it to be clear in these ways. We even go as far as use this font, use this logo from us, and it just makes it so much easier to generate these. We can go ahead and go to the next example that I did here. This one's more on the hardware side. Inventory management, really easy to just query the inventory that you have. We frequently use it with other systems as well. So we have a different system that provides us device age based on the serial number. We've also used it where we integrate with the Apple Business API that has been recently released and has things like the AppleCare status for each device. So we can pull data from that API, pull data from the Iru MCP, and just have it generate one report saying, here's all the ones that have AppleCare. You can even have it sort by AppleCare that's going to be expiring most recently. And then for lifecycle for these companies, we typically work to establish a lifecycle policy, and having these automatic reports be able to show you exactly what you have, how old the inventory is, warranty status, all that kind of stuff really helps plan ahead to make sure that lifecycle is budgeted for appropriately and that you're getting ahead of that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie. That's really great. And again, super valuable, right? Being able to visualize all of this stuff, connect things together. And very much one of the things I got excited about this year, at least earlier in the year, was when Apple released those APIs in the Apple Business Service. As of next week, hoping to see some more. DC kicks off very shortly. It'd be interesting to see where they go and extend those endpoints on their side as well and see what else we can do with it moving forwards. But that's great. Thanks for sharing. I guess just to wrap a few things up on our side, we want to hear from you. We want to see what you're doing with this. These are just a handful of examples of things that we think are quite cool, we think are quite useful, but there's so many ideas that we haven't thought of yet. If you are using this, if you're thinking about using it and you want to show us, we'd love to hear from you. Tag us in LinkedIn posts and things like that. We are running a little draw on this as well right now. If you do submit those entries before Friday, the 19th of June, then there will be a prize that you get to choose at the end, whether that's AirPods, Lego, or a gift card of your choice, right? But yeah, let us know. We want to see it. I guess before we move on to Q&A, I do want to hint at something coming down the road, right? The MCP here is very much a thing that you can do today. And it's, hey, this is a really nice way of, again, using human language to integrate tools together and build up some really cool user experiences and informational data, right? But one thing that you'll hear from us on a little bit more in the very near future is configuration as code. And this works really well with things like MCP, and it's very much aligned with API for everything that we do. I can't say too much right now, but one thing I will say is follow the blog, because in the very near future, you'll be seeing a lot from us in that space. And again, you'll see a lot more API endpoints alongside it for both the MCP and for those of you that are looking to do infrastructure as code, configuration as code, we hear you. Cool. So onto Q&A. There's actually been quite a few questions in the background there. I'm going to start just picking a few out, and just for the last few minutes or so, Lance, Kelvin, Robbie, feel free to jump into them. Feel free to answer if you've got any insight or anything like that. Maybe the first one might be for Lance here, but the first question is, can we accomplish the same workflows with Gemini, ChatGPT, or other tools beyond just Claude?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely we support any of those. MCP is kind of a general protocol that works with any of the tools that support MCP. So all the ones that you mentioned there, Gemini, Claude, Cursor, all of those work. So you just have to maybe configure it slightly different, because sometimes they have them just different places and settings, or you have to mix it up a little bit with just like the MCP configuration. But the configuration that I did share has all the information you need. You just have to format it in the way that works with whatever tool you're using.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. And I guess the follow-up question to that is, how do I get started? Are there any resources that I can follow? Or if I've never done this before, where should I start?
Yeah, I think there were some really good examples here of just some things that you can do once you do get it connected. I think, like anything, the first thing is probably just to think about, what are you trying to accomplish? What are kind of your requirements? You saw some really cool examples of reports and dashboards and things that you can use. Sometimes those can be static. You can make those dynamic as well. And I think just sharing amongst yourselves, we're on MacAdmin Slack. Feel free to post your ideas there and just kind of share your ideas with the world. I think that's really important too. And then that'll help everybody just kind of get better. But I think the nice thing about it is that you don't have to have it totally figured out, because the nice thing about how AI is working right now, you can just type in what you're looking for and then just refine it over time. You saw my dashboard. It was a very simple prompt that I put in there, but if I was really going to use that in the end, I'd probably make a few changes to it. So one of the things that I found that's really important is just like, sometimes you can one-shot it and it might do okay, but you've got to continue to refine it to really meet what your requirements are. And so that's the next step there. We do have some information too on our docs website. So if you go to docs.iru.com, that does have all the information on how to configure it and whatnot. And then just right now it supports any of the enterprise APIs. So if you go to our API docs as well, that will have all the tools that are listed there that you can use. And as Ryan said, we'll continue to enhance those over time too.
Cool.
Two things. Let me jump in real quick there. Two things I wanted to mention. When you create a token with the MCP configuration, it's worth noting that the API key in the configuration is not the same as the token at the top. Lance showed the example of how to create one with the MCP configuration. Make sure you're using the MCP configuration part. And then on specific tool use, almost all of them, if you just say, here's my MCP configuration, make sure it's added correctly, a lot of them will just do the work for you and put it where it needs to go. So
yeah, the models have grown a lot, quite significantly in the last year or so, right? And I imagine they're going to continue to do so naturally. There's a question here. I guess really this is a mindfulness one over anything else, but maybe for everybody. Does Iru AI have a token cost we need to be aware of? Right. And I guess maybe for Robbie and Kelvin, have you seen any of those stats on what you've been building? What does that look like right now?
So the MCP doesn't cost anything to use directly. It's going to be whatever tool you're using to connect to it. I typically am in Claude Code to be able to run all these reports. And so it's just the Claude token usage that is being counted.
Yeah, same here. I'm using a Claude Code, but I'm mainly doing everything in Cowork as well with the integration. So everything is just working seamless with schedules.
And maybe just one tip on that too. Cost can always turn into can be expensive at times depending on what you're doing. And so what I've kind of found when I've just been playing with it is you got to kind of pick the right model for the task that you're doing. So whether you're using Claude or Cursor or something else, they have different models. If we use Claude as an example, they have the Opus model, which is like the most expensive but smartest model, I'll say. And so that's really great for like planning out something really complex, or if you're trying to implement something super complex. Then they have the Sonnet model, which is a little less expensive. And so it kind of just depends. Sometimes you may try to use that planning aspect and kind of build out the architecture of what you're doing with Opus, but then you want to refine it with maybe Sonnet, just as an example. So just kind of think through what you're trying to accomplish and which model is best. Because if you're using Opus for literally everything, hey, commit this change or something like to your GitHub repo, like that's a pretty expensive call to just say to commit, right? So just kind of be smart about how you do it and just pick the right model for the right task, I would say.
And you can always, with Claude as well, prep everything that you want. You could also tell even ChatGPT or Claude, hey, can you create me an instructions for Claude for co-work so we can know the instructions on how to take the next steps, where to go and pull the information a little bit more faster. If it's something that's complex, of course, use Opus. And then once you have created your instructions, you have created your co-work project, then you could decrease it and no longer use Opus and also use Sonic. So it makes things easier.
Yeah, that's really good tips. I appreciate everyone's input there. I know we're just at time, but I just wanted to answer one quick one here. The question was, can we use this for simple commands like get a FileVault recovery key or lock a device? 100%. Right. Anything that's an API endpoint that's available today, you can leverage the MCP as a mechanism to trigger actions or pull information or push something. But yeah, absolutely. But watch the space because you'll see a whole lot more of them in the near future as well. I know we are at time. There's still quite a few questions, so we'll take those away. And if there's any that we can follow up on, we absolutely will do. But beyond that, feel free to get in touch with us all. We're all here. If you have any further questions, there's the community, there's the Mac Admins channel that the community own. Work with each other, help each other out, as we're all here to do the same thing, right? But beyond that, the customer success team on our side's here, the product team are all here to help, and we want to hear from you. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and again, we'll see you on the next one.